Welcome to Jim Reynolds Outdoors, and I have a special guest for you today. His name is Dan Wright. He's the president of the Scott County Farm Bureau as well as a board member of the Arkansas Farm Bureau. Dan, we're glad to have you today.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me.
Well, I know you've listened to the show before, and you've always kind of been wondering what the place looks like, and now you've been here, so what do you think?
Took the grand tour. I really like it. It's not anything what you think it'd be. It's a lot better than what I thought it would be. I'm really impressed with the facilities.
Well, thank you very much. Now, the reason we brought you on today, Dan, is we have a mutual friend, Mike Carson, down in the Mansfield area on the Scott County side. And he was, I actually introduced him to duck hunting. And you didn't know that, but now you do. But anyway, he introduced to me. He wanted me to talk to you, and certainly a great I talked to him yesterday and invited him onto the show, and he's got something that he would like to share with our listeners. And Dan, number one, I'm just glad that you wanted to come and share this with other people, because I think it's something that you really ought to know, don't you?
I do. This is something that is not very many people have gotten, and it's something that is just not very well known about.
Well, let's tell them exactly what it is that we want to talk about today.
Okay, I've got an allergy, a food allergy. It's called alpha-gal. And this allergy is one in which I can't eat any kind of mammal meat whatsoever. Mammal meat consists of beef, pork, deer meat, all the good meats really is the way I look at it. I'm 54 years old. I've always been a meat eater. I would eat beef or pork 3 times a day. About a year ago, I started coming down with allergic reactions. I would break out in hives from head to toe. My wife said it would look like I had third-degree burns all over my body. And I had 5 reactions within 3 weeks, each one twice as bad as the other. And we got to doing some research on this, and I went to an allergist. Turned out I was allergic to mammal meat.
Wow. And so you found out that you were allergic to mammal meat, and then what did the doctor tell you about how you got allergic to mammal meat?
Alpha-gal is contracted by ticks. The Lone Star tick is the culprit, and he said anytime within the last 10 years I could have been bitten. He said you'll show a few symptoms before what mine is called the full-blown symptoms. If you eat beef or pork or whatever, like a steak for lunch or dinner, you may have some gastric problems later. And I did before the full-blown stuff started. And he said it just grows and grows within your body. And at one time, he referred to it as a cup.
Yeah.
Once that every time you eat beef, pork, or mammal meat, that cup fills a little farther up. And once it gets to the overflowing portion, then you start full-blown allergic reactions. And mine is an anaphylactic reactions, which is anaphylactic shock.
Yes, I noticed. I asked you, one of the questions I asked you today was, do you have an EpiPen? And you turn to your side, and you have it right there on your belt.
I carry with me everywhere I go.
Everywhere you go. Now, tell our listeners about when you go out to eat, which you don't do that as often anymore, but you actually have somebody assigned to you through Farm Bureau that when you go out to perform your official duties and y'all go out to eat, what does that person have to do for you?
That person has to go to the restaurants before we get there. And her job is to make sure they prepare my food in a way that it never comes in contact with mammal meat. And that consists of, like say I'm going to have chicken. And everybody else is having steak. They have to completely clean that grill off in the area where my chicken will be made. They can't use the same utensils to turn that steak over as they do my chicken. Nothing can ever contaminate with my food. If it does, then I'll have a reaction in about 4 hours. An example of that is I ate at a restaurant one time. I had chicken. They had Texas toast for that, and they grilled it on the same grill as what they had beef. And I took one small bite and tasted the beef. Never took another bite and had a small reaction within 4 hours. So everything that is done has to be free of any kind of mammal meat whatsoever.
And it can't touch any mammal meat whatsoever. Give me another example as far as what type of you'd had hives, swelling. What were some of the other things?
The first time it happened, I had I broke out in hives and a lot of itching, and after a little bit, my tongue began to swell up, and my head swelled up. Took some Benadryl, that took care of that. The next day, we was in Missouri visiting my son then. The next day we came home, I stopped at Sonic and got a hamburger. And about 5 hours later, I started itching again. And I began to have the swelling in my tongue and my head. We went to the doctor the next day. We couldn't figure out what it was. I was having some knee problems, had a knee wrap. Thought I was allergic to neoprene. And so we took that off. I continued to eat the beef and the pork three times a day. About 5 days later, I had another one, and it was worse than the other two. The itching had increased. The hives had increased. Felt faint. Then I went to the hospital on that one. They gave me the EpiPen. Next, about 5 days after that, I had another one. And with this one, the blood pressure started dropping. I went to the hospital. My heart rate was 120. It dropped to 60 within an instant, and I almost passed out. 3 days later, I had another one. And I went back, and my airways started closing off then. The doctors tell me that what happens is the body is fighting this, and each time it's not successful, the next time it will increase its battle, and it'll start cutting off vital body organs. Like my heart would almost stop, and my airways would close up.
So you can see, folks, how serious this is. And we need to make this because, I know Farm Bureau, they're meat eaters. They support meat eating. But have they been real supportive in your allergy and what you've done? They've assigned you somebody, so that's been very supportive, it seems like.
Their idea is to make sure I don't die on their watch.
and so your cup is extremely full.
Yes.
And you cannot really... You don't need to have another reaction.
No, the doctors have told me my blood count, and I can't remember the name of the test, but my blood count is 60 times above what it should be, 60 times above the maximum level.
That's that alpha-gal enzyme?
Alpha-gal, yes.
Okay.
And they said that if I had another reaction, I could possibly die for the next one.
And this includes like cornbread in bacon oil,
yes,
McDonald's French fries, and
exactly.
What kind of oil do they use?
They use the beef-based oil.
Beef-based oil, and then beans with pork.
Anytime I go out to eat, my wife goes with me, and she makes sure she knows how they cook everything. If you use the bacon-type grease, and a lot of people do, I can't eat that. If pinto beans is out of the question because they use ham in that. A lot of green beans have bacon put in them now. So a lot of that stuff, like I go to certain restaurants, my menu, they may have a 4-page menu. Mine is maybe 3 items that I can eat. I've met a lot of managers this year because I'll take them a card. I'll give them a card and show them what'll happen, and I'll tell them, if you cook this wrong and I get mammal meat in there, I'll die in your restaurant. And so you get to meet a lot of managers by doing that. Yeah.
And I'm sure they're listening really close, too. Mm-hmm. Tell our listeners also about sutures and gel caplets.
Something else. This is something I didn't think about. There was a task force Monday at the Capitol in Little Rock, and I went to that. Some people's been having some problems with the gel caplets. And the gel caplets, a lot of people don't know, but it's made from beef products, beef byproducts. Also, some sutures, especially internal sutures, are made from beef byproducts. A woman, she had a surgery, and they stitched her up with that, and she had a reaction 4 to 5 hours later. They had to go back in and take those sutures out to save her life. So this is something that we got to be very vigilant on. EMTs, when they go out, a lot of them don't know about this allergy. I've been to several doctors before that had no idea that this was even out there. So this is relatively new, and we really need to be watching out for it.
Well, Dan, we really appreciate you coming into Jim Reynolds Outdoors today and sharing that with us, because it's something that a relative could have that they don't know about, and this kind of gives them an avenue to even think about. You said 20% of people have this and don't know it.
20% already have it.
Wow. Well, that's certainly newsworthy, and I'm glad you came on to our show to share that, and thank you for listening. You're a longtime listener, and we do appreciate you coming on board.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
Thank you.